Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something I think is really fundamental. How the most successful innovators, well, they kind of stopped asking for permission and instead started embracing imperfection. We've got some great material here focusing on this idea of rapid iteration, prototype fast, learn faster. Our mission today, pretty straightforward, really. We want to unpack the blueprint for, shifting away from those slow, maybe 18-month-long, risky launches towards something much faster, much more certain in terms of success. We're asking, what if speed isn't actually about rushing things? What if it's really about optimizing how quickly you can learn?
That's exactly it. That distinction is critical. Rapid iteration, it's not just another project management buzzword, right? It's more like a whole philosophy. It's designed specifically to radically shorten that path to market success. And it does that by making learning the main goal, the primary deliverable, not the final, polished product. So think about it this way. Instead of one big 12-month development cycle, you're aiming for maybe 12 distinct one-month learning cycles. That speed itself, that becomes your edge, your competitive advantage.
Okay, right. Let's unpack that. We're calling this section the prototype paradox, why speed trumps perfection. Because, let's be honest, most of us have this idea drilled into us, perfect it before you show it. There's a huge pressure, isn't there? To launch something totally polished, completely ready for prime time, feels safer.
It feels safer, but the research we've looked at, it strongly suggests that this exact desire, this need for initial perfection, might actually be the single biggest killer of innovation. When you sort of insulate yourself, work away in secret for months, maybe years, you're just delaying that moment of truth. That reality check.
Exactly. That inevitable point where you find out your beautiful, perfect idea might be built on, well, a completely flawed assumption.
And that delay isn't just time, is it? It's money. Big money sometimes.
Massive amounts of time and capital, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about some of those big tech or hardware failures we've seen. Often, it's because the team was stuck in an internal bubble. They put off showing it to real users because, they worry, it's not quite good enough yet. But by the time they do get that feedback...
It's too late?
Often, yeah. They've invested so much, gone so far down one particular path, that pivoting becomes incredibly expensive, sometimes even career-ending for the people involved. So the core principle that really jumps out from all this analysis is clear. The speed of iteration has to win out over initial perfection. Absolutely has to. Getting something functional out there, even if it's frankly pretty ugly just to test that core assumption, that's exponentially more valuable than spending another 6 months polishing a feature that, users might not even want or need. Okay, but I can hear people thinking, doesn't that just sound like an excuse to be sloppy? If we're pushing speed, how do we stop the team, or even just ourselves on a personal project from, just throwing a terrible product out there and slapping the label rapid iteration on it? What's the actual difference between genuinely failing fast and, well, just building something bad quickly?
That's a really crucial question, and the answer lies in how you define the prototype itself. See, if you're just building quickly for the sake of speed, that's probably sloppy. But if you're building quickly specifically to answer a targeted question, now you're doing rapid iteration. The purpose isn't to sell the vision, not yet. It's purely to gather data. So a prototype isn't a mini version of the final product. It's literally just a question asking for answers.
I really like that framing. The prototype is a question. Okay, so let's talk about that first draft then, the one that's supposed to be ugly. We talk about low-fidelity prototyping, sketching, wireframes, maybe even building things out of cardboard. And you might think, why bother with physical stuff? Why grab markers and foam core when we've got these amazing digital tools like Figma that can make things look slick instantly? It seems a bit backward.
It does seem counterintuitive, I get that. But it's incredibly powerful. The actual materials, the low fidelity, they matter because they force focus.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, actually. If you show a user a really beautiful, highly polished digital mock-up, what happens? Their brain often jumps straight to subjective stuff.
Like, oh, I don't like that shade of green.
Yeah, exactly. Or the font feels a bit too modern or whatever. They start critiquing the aesthetics, the polish, because it looks finished. But if you hand them a model cobbled together with cardboard and sticky tape, their mind just filters out that visual noise. It has to focus purely on the function. They end up testing the workflow, the core mechanism, the usability. Is this easy to figure out? Does it do what I expect? Low fidelity deliberately strips away the polish to make sure the feedback is about the core function, the fundamental assumptions you're testing.
Right, so you're getting feedback on the idea, not just the look. Makes sense. But if the output is deliberately kind of rough, The mindset required to actually deliver that and be okay with it must be pretty tough to adopt. What's the biggest hurdle people face when they try to implement this rapid approach?
It usually comes down to overcoming that deep-seated professional and maybe even intellectual commitment to perfection. It's one thing to nod along in a meeting when someone says, fail fast. We all do it.
Yeah, sounds good in theory.
Exactly. But then when your ugly prototype physically breaks during testing, or when you get that really blunt, honest feedback saying your core idea is just fundamentally flawed, that's when the intellectual concept often just evaporates and ego kicks in. It's hard not to take it personally.
Mhm.
To really succeed with this, you absolutely have to embrace the fail fast mentality practically, not just intellectually. It has to be real. And that means being genuinely prepared to spend, say, 2 weeks building out a concept, getting the feedback, and then completely abandoning it without regret because the cost was low and the learning was incredibly high. That's a win, even if the project itself gets shelved.
That mindset shift, being okay with killing your darlings based on data, leads us right into the next crucial part, the feedback loop. This is where we actually turn that initial ugly question into useful, actionable data. So how do we make sure the feedback we collect is actually useful, that it's not just noise?
Good question. The sources we look through really emphasize getting actionable feedback. It's not just about asking people what they think.
Right. The materials point to, I think, 3 key strategies.
Mm.
First, asking really targeted questions, not just a vague, so what do you think? Second, using diverse user groups. Makes sense. You can't just test your groundbreaking idea on your mom and your best friend who already think you're a genius.
Definitely not. You need people who represent the actual target audience, maybe even some skeptics.
And the third one, which you touched on earlier and I think is maybe the most critical, is observational testing. Actually watching people.
Oh, observational testing is pure gold. Seriously. Watching people use your prototype, seeing where they hesitate, where they get confused, maybe where they even struggle with it. That provides a layer of truth that just asking direct questions often completely masks. Users, bless them, often try to be nice. They'll tell you what they think you want to hear.
Oh yeah, the workflow is great.
Exactly. Loved it. But then you watch the recording and you see them fumble around for 30 seconds just trying to find the next button. That observation, that is the real signal.
Okay, so you gather all this data, the observations, the answers to targeted questions. Now comes the hard part, making sense of it all.
Synthesizing it, yes, that's definitely the challenging step. It's the real art of listening, you could say. Separating the genuine signal from all the surrounding noise. Let's take an example. Imagine you're testing a new checkout process for an online store. Maybe a dozen users test it, and half of them complain, saying, I hate that big red buy now button. It feels really aggressive.
Okay, so that sounds like clear feedback. Change the button color.
Seems like it, right? But that might just be the noise. What if, while watching them, you realize that 8 out of those 12 users first clicked the company logo at the top of the page, thinking that was the checkout button?
Ah, okay. So they only complained about the red button after they got frustrated trying to find the right way forward.
Precisely. So the real signal isn't actually about the button's color at all. It's about its placement, maybe its label, the overall visual hierarchy being confusing. The true pain point is the confusing workflow, right? You fix that workflow, make the path obvious, and suddenly, maybe nobody complains about the red button anymore. Why? Because they aren't desperately scanning the page in frustration. They found the correct path immediately.
That's a great example of noise versus signal. So once you've identified that true signal, that real pain point, what's the next step? The mandate.
The mandate is immediate and tangible action. Iterate, don't stagnate. That's the core instruction.
So the rapid part of rapid iteration isn't just about building the first version quickly.
No, it's also about acting on the feedback quickly, taking that insight you just gained from the field and immediately folding it into version 2.0, which you then test again, maybe next week, not 6 months down the line when everyone's forgotten the details.
Right. It's a continuous cycle. Build, measure, learn, act, repeat. Fast.
Exactly. The whole point isn't just to gather the data, it's to act on that data with high velocity. That's how you accelerate learning.
Okay, let's try and bring these concepts to life a bit more. Thinking about the impact this whole methodology has on timelines and success. The sources we reviewed were full of examples, weren't they? Successful products and services that started out as these, well, profoundly ugly, low-fidelity experiments. You can maybe think about something like Instagram in its really early days. Before all the videos and complex filters, what was the core problem they solved?
Yeah, initially it wasn't about being a massive social network. It was laser focused on solving one very specific core user need. Sharing a decent looking photo quickly and easily, eliminating all the friction that existed on other platforms at the time.
So they didn't launch with everything. They launched a test, focused on that core loop.
Pretty much. They launched a minimal version focused on that photo sharing workflow. Then they rapidly iterated. They added features, tweaked the sharing process, streamlined things, all based on feedback, especially observational feedback, from small, very specific user groups. They found and fixed those major usability flaws and refined the core features before they scaled massively, before going viral.
And what does that example really demonstrate in terms of business impact?
Well, it clearly shows the huge gain you get from accelerated market entry and the resulting competitive advantage that comes with it. They didn't wait until they had 100 features polished perfectly. They effectively dominated a new market space by getting one key workflow right really quickly. They captured user attention, user mindshare, by proving they understood a core user pain point better and addressed it faster than anyone else could.
That makes sense. And it also helps tackle that sort of one-hit wonder myth, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. People love to look at a big success story and just attribute it to, luck or perfect timing or some mythical single stroke of genius. But sustained success, it's almost never just a random flash of inspiration. It's usually the result of continuous, disciplined learning. Learning that comes directly from ongoing, rapid iteration. The system itself, that ability to learn and adapt faster than your competitors, that's what becomes the real, sustainable, competitive advantage over time.
Now, this next part is maybe the most empowering piece of this whole deep dive, I think. Because you don't need to be running some huge billion-dollar startup
Mhm.
to actually use this approach, right?
Mhm.
We can connect these innovation concepts directly back to your own life, to the listener's world. Whether you're planning a big project at work, maybe starting a little side hustle, or even just trying to form better habits.
Exactly. The principles are surprisingly universal.
Think about something like career development. Let's say you're trying to move into a new type of role, applying for jobs. Instead of spending, I don't know, 3 agonizing weeks perfecting just one application, which is kind of like that slow, insulated development model we talked about, you could apply rapid iteration.
Mm.
Maybe in the first 2 weeks, you try out 5 distinctly different approaches.
Like testing different resume formats.
Yeah, or different tones in your cover letter. Maybe highlighting completely different skill sets for different applications.
Hmm.
And you just see which ones actually generate interest, which ones get interviews.
So you're essentially treating the job market like your own personal laboratory.
Right, an interview request. That's your positive signal. A rejection, that's just data. It's not a personal failure. It's information.
And you learn much faster about what that particular company or maybe even that specific recruiter is actually looking for. Then you adjust your next prototype, your next application based on that real-world feedback. And that, I think, is maybe the most powerful insight here. Innovation, or even just effective problem solving, it doesn't always require a massive budget, doesn't need a huge team. What it really requires is discipline and a genuine commitment to taking action, however small. The underlying principle is exactly the same, whether you're, developing a complex new software feature or just trying to learn a new personal skill, like coding or playing the guitar or whatever it is.
Also, how would you apply it to learning guitar, say?
Well, you'd identify the minimum viable test. Maybe that's just learning 3 basic chords and trying to switch between them cleanly for 1 minute. You execute that quickly, practice for 20 minutes. Then you gather the feedback. How did it feel? Did you actually manage it? Record yourself, maybe. Then you immediately adjust your next practice session based on what you learn. Maybe you need to focus on just 2 chords first or practice the transitions slower. It's the same loop. Build, practice, measure, assess, learn, identify issues, act, adjust next practice.
Start small, start now. Learn as you go.
Precisely.
Okay, so I think that brings us to the final directive then. The kind core instruction that comes out of this whole body of work we've been discussing. It's really quite simple. Start small. Start now. And just begin your own rapid learning journey, whatever that looks like for you.
Don't wait around for someone to give you permission.
And definitely don't wait until you think something is perfect. Because perfection might never come, or it might come too late.
The only thing you really need to worry about,
Hitting the start button.
hitting the start button on your own learning clock, that speed, that momentum of learning, that's everything.